So
Good morning, everyone.
now I see
Hello.
Raj is back. Hi Raj, how are you?
Raj is mute, I think.
Yeah, I'm good, good. Thank you for asking. Yesterday I have something emergency came from in front of me right away. Then I go out. So I call the smart skiller.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
So did you go through the lecture, yesterday's lecture?
No, I didn't get that. I requested him, but I didn't get that yesterday
Mm,
lecture.
Okay, no worries. He'll be sharing that with you today. Just make sure to go through that lecture.
Sure, sure, definitely. That's why I asked a couple times. Maybe he will get tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Sure, there might be some technical glitch. Don't worry, we'll be resolving it and you'll be getting that lecture because yesterday lecture was a bit complicated. Okay,
Okay.
and you need to go through it twice, at least, I guess, once or twice. And if you, as soon as you get the lecture, go through it. And if you do have any doubts, you can
I will let you know. Okay, yeah.
just let me know in the next class and we'll deal with that.
Okay.
Now let's start our today's session. Just give me a second. Yeah. Mm, Is my screen visible to you guys?
Yes.
Let's start our today's lecture. Today we'll
Yes.
be discussing software testing life cycle. Okay.
Okay.
And in that, what we'll be discussing first, test planning, test design, test execution, bug reporting, bug tracking, and test closure. In short, we'll be discussing the entire life cycle that we follow for software testing itself. Earlier, if you guys do remember, we had discussed software development life cycle, correct? SDLC.
Yes.
So that was the entire process that would help in development of a software. Now, STLC, it's the entire process that is involved in testing of a software. So what basically is software testing life cycle? Any ideas, any of you? Deepen?
Software testing is software testing lifecycle is an application to ensure to meet the requirements.
Why would it be an application?
It's a process. Sorry, it's not an application.
Yes, it's a process that
We ensure that all the requirements are met, and it has less bugs, which is acceptable.
okay. Anything else? Any
The other
So
thing I
I would say
can, yeah. All right. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Rajan.
Okay,
So,
yeah, yeah. This is I think it's a lost software testing life cycle is one kind of process or sequence for the conducting while the testing process is ensure the goals are meet
mhm. What kind
as
of
per the
goals?
requirement. As per
What
the
kind of
requirement.
goals would that be?
As per the requirement. No bugs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No bugs, no defect, and then the good product. That's all.
Okay. Yes, both of you are correct. So let us deep dive into it. Now, software testing life cycle. It's basically a systematic approach of testing the software application so that it meets the requirement and it's defect free. What we mean by that is, like, in software development life cycle, there are various phases that are involved, from requirement gathering to maintenance phase. There are many phases involved that help us to develop a software and keep it in a running condition. Similarly, in software testing life cycle, there are many phases involved that help us to meet the specified requirement that was given to us either by the customer or the product owner here. And the job of us being a tester is to make sure that these requirements are fulfilled at any cost. If not, we cannot allow that software to go live, or we cannot allow that software to go to the customers because they would be rejecting the software because their requirements are not met. Now, in order to make sure that these requirements are met, that too having keeping in mind certain standards, that yes, most of the functionality should be working, there should be no major defects. For very basic functionalities, they should work absolutely fine. Like if we consider the example of social media, there is a login functionality, and if we try to deliver a social media to any customer, we need to make sure that in our social media platform, we are able to log in and log out seamlessly. There is no problem with login and log out. Neither there is any problem if we try to post anything or comment on it. We need to make sure that the basic functionalities or the major functionality, they are very sorry, they are very robust. Okay. And similar to that software development life cycle, there are multiple phases that are designed just to make sure that we do everything step by step, just to make sure that the quality is not compromised and each and every aspect of the software is tested, that too very thoroughly. Okay.
Okay.
Any doubts?
No.
Okay.
No,
Yes, Raju, were you saying something?
I said no.
Okay.
No doubt. Yeah, it's clear.
Now, characteristic of software testing life cycle. It is the fundamental part of software development life cycle, but consists only of testing phases. So, what exactly does this mean? You can say that software testing life cycle is the subset of software development life cycle. Correct?
Yes.
And why so? Dipen, if I may ask.
once the software developed, like there might be some features added, or maybe some features were missed, where uh, we use the developed software for the testing
That's
to meet
correct.
all requirements as expected, and to make sure that like all the functions that expected were running properly.
Mm-hmm. But why do we say that software testing life cycle is a subset of software development life cycle? That was the question.
It 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 is a part of software development, like SDLC. Like
Correct.
it is one of the
Mm-hmm. Yes, go ahead.
it is one of the requirement during the SDLC process.
Not one of the requirement. What basically means is software testing life cycle works side by side with the software development life cycle. Okay.
Oh,
It,
okay.
software testing life cycle kicks in as soon as the requirement is given to us. Correct?
Yes.
So we can start preparing our test cases. So that's how the software testing life cycle kicks in. Now it's gonna keep on going through various phases till the software gets into maintenance phase. Okay, then also we'll have our testing cycle, but a new testing cycle is going to start over as soon as the maintenance phase kicks in. Okay,
Okay.
that's why software testing life cycle is a part of software development life cycle. Because if you might have remembered, in the development life cycle there was a particular testing phase itself only, correct? Once
Uh,
the deployment was then done, then we moved towards the testing phase, correct?
yes. When the implementation is complete.
Yes, when the implementation or the development of software is complete, then we move towards the testing phase. In testing
Yeah.
phase, we test all the requirements just to make sure everything is working. If not, we'll be raising an issue. In the testing phase only, the developers gonna test those. Developers gonna fix those issues and revert back to us. And once we have verified those issues, then we move towards the deployment phase. That was how it works, correct?
Yes.
So that was a particular testing phase. But before testing, you need to prepare the test cases, correct?
Yes.
So, and preparing for test cases, it takes time. It's not that the development was done today, from tomorrow onwards, you start preparing the test cases. No, that's not how it works. As soon as the requirement is given, it is given to both tester as well as the developers. Now, as the developer starts working on the development process, in the meantime, the tester starts working on the test case creation process. And as soon as the test case creation is complete, and generally it should be completed before the testing phase, the software test case creation. And as soon as the test case is created, the tester shares those test cases with the developers and the product owner, just to make sure that everyone is aware what kind of testing we are going to perform. And they would also have a better idea if there are something or some cases that we might have missed, or if there is something that they need to handle in their code itself. So they can go through those test cases and make sure that all these functionalities or all these cases are covered in their code, so that they don't have to do the rework, or the tester don't have to go through the hassle of creating the bug. Because if we do create a bug, there is a to and fro process involved. First, I'll be creating an issue. then I'll be assigning to the respective developers if we know who has developed that particular functionality. If not, we might have to assign it to the manager or the testing lead, and he's gonna in turn assign it to any particular developer who's gonna work on it, and then he's gonna revert us back. He's gonna revert back the issue. Now again, we need to verify that whether that issue was actually fixed or not. And due to the fix, it might there is no other issues created. So there is lot of to and fro process involved as soon as a bug is created. Okay, so generally developers tends to avoid that. No, there should not be any kind of major functionality flaws. Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
so are we clear about the software testing life cycle in general?
Yes.
So now moving forward, the phases of software testing life cycle. First, as you know, it start as soon as the requirement is given. Requirement gathering phase is completed and the requirement is handed over to the developers. And that at that point of time, those requirements are also handed over to the testers. Now, as soon as we get the requirement, what do? We start the requirement analysis phase. In requirement analysis phase, we generally, what we do is we try to analyze the requirements. What exactly does the customer want, or what exactly is the vision of the customer for that software that he has given to us for development. So we try to understand the customer's perspective and his or her requirement. So what exactly is the purpose? Once we are able to understand, now we analyze each and every requirement. We have to go through each requirement just to make sure that, okay, every functionality, everything has to be covered. We start analyzing them one by one and start our test case development. Okay. Any doubts?
I'm good.
Okay. Now, the activities that takes place during the requirement analysis. First, reviewing the software requirement document and other related documents. As we had already discussed, during the requirement phase, the customer help us, the customer gives us the requirement. So these requirements, they are not verbal, okay? They are well documented requirement. Either those requirements would be documented by the manager or the product owner, but everything would be documented, okay? And the document, it is known as SRD, or in some cases PRD. PRD means product requirement document, SRD means software requirement document. Depending upon your company, they might call it SRD or PRD, okay? Now, the next part, interviewing the stakeholders to gather additional information. Like, as soon as we analyze the requirements, there might be certain questions in our mind regarding any particular requirement, that there might be some alternate to that requirement, or there might be some cases, or there might be some functionality that might be missing due to that incomplete requirement. that was given to us in the SRD. Now we need to go through that entire list of requirements and create our own doubt form, you can say, or create our own questions if we do have any, that we need some additional information or we need some clarity. We need to prepare those list of questions if we have any. Now, once we have prepared that list, we can contact our product owner or whoever interacts with the client, and we can ask those questions to that person. If he's able to give us answers, well and good. If not, then we can just give him those questions, and he in turn would be going to the customer and asking them what exactly, I mean, what information is missing or what exactly should we do here. Okay.
Yes.
Third point, identifying any ambiguities or inconsistencies in the requirement. Now, generally, what happens is customers, they might be creating that SRD or the product owner, and there are high chances that there might be some inconsistencies. Like, suppose, assume that I wanted a social media platform for myself. So I contacted a software company and told them to develop a software, I mean, social media platform for me. Now I gave them the SRD. In the SRD, there was a requirement that said that yes, you need to help me with providing a login functionality. Okay. And this would be the process, how exactly I want the login functionality to work. In that, I had given the details. Now, I forgot to mention that logout functionality, that there should be a logout functionality as well. And let us assume that social media platform is not a very trending subject. So it was, you can assume that it was at the start of 2000, that it was not at its peak. So most of us won't be having any idea what exactly is social media platform. And at that point of time, we gave a company the order to develop social media for us, social media website, to be more precise. Now, we had given the requirement to give us a login functionality, but we were not giving them the requirement to give us a logout functionality. Now, going through that requirement, the developers and the testers, when they went through that login functionality, then they thought that there should be a logout functionality as well. So they asked the product owner first, like, you had asked for a login functionality, but there should be a logout functionality as well. That would make sure that the different users are able to access social media from the same system. So now what the manager does is he or she also does not have the idea that whether logout functionality is needed for the customer or not. So he's gonna reach out to me and ask that. While going through the requirements, our team found out an ambiguity. Now, this is an additional feature of logout functionality, and this is how it's gonna work. And we think that you should include in your requirement the logout functionality. And after hearing their thoughts, I thought, yes, it's a genuine functionality that should be included to make our website more customer friendly, and anyone can use our social media from the same device by using the login and logout functionality. So I told them, yes, go ahead and add that requirement. So what they did, the product owner, you can say, added that requirement of logout functionality. Okay. So the testing or development teams, they are able to identify the inconsistencies or ambiguities of requirements. And this is how it is done and how it is resolved. Are we clear on it? Dipen?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Now, identifying any missing or incomplete. Yes, similar to that. There is a very little difference between ambiguity or inconsistency and missing requirements. So you can consider the same example here also. Identifying any potential risk or issues that may impact the testing process. And by this, we mean that when you do have any kind of requirement, there are things that we need to keep in mind just to make sure that the testing process is seamless. Like if we try to test the login functionality, we need to make sure that a user is not allowed to enter more than 4 or 5 times incorrect login ID and password. If the user is allowed to enter any number of times user ID and password without any limitation, then there is a high risk that our IDs might get hacked. So due to such kind of behavior, we need to make sure that no one is allowed to enter, let us suppose 1,000 in a single minute, no one should be allowed to enter 500 times their passwords. Because if we try to do that through a script, it is possible. So we need to we need to limit that functionality from our back end and identify that potential risk itself. What might be a problem in future when the development is complete. Okay.
Okay.
Then creating the requirement. Now, yes, creating a requirement traceability matrix. So what exactly is requirement traceability matrix? Have you heard about it, Deepen?
To creating some boundaries,
What kind of boundaries?
like if I say if the user insert like 0 to 9 numbers, or if the requirement is 1 to 10, then we set a boundaries from 1 to 9.
That's boundary value analysis. Here we are talking about requirement traceability matrix, not boundary value analysis. Don't confuse these two. That was different that we had discussed yesterday, and now this is different.
Okay.
Raj, go through this definition and try to explain what do you think about requirement traceability matrix. I'll give you 30 seconds, Raj. Yes, Raj, your thoughts on RTM? Raj, if you are saying you are on mute. Okay, I think Raj might be busy.
Can I?
Yeah, sure, Deepan, why not?
From my understanding with this, the definition here, it says like the requirement traceability metrics is to set a boundaries uh, where what kind of requirements that the clients have, and to ensure that all those requirements are listed during the analysis stage, and the tester has a clear view of the requirement.
So, how exactly would the requirement traceability matrix help in that?
Uh, to uh, to focus on the areas where the most required part, like let's say if a client or the product manager is asking to develop software for the WhatsApp application,
Mm-hmm.
we can make sure that like the WhatsApp application has uh, the requirement set for login, user ID, password, like specific characters and uh, case sensibilities,
So
and
that
make
that would
yes.
be the test case designing, not exactly the requirement traceability matrix.
No, I'm giving about the example. Those are the requirement from the customer. Let's say
Yes,
the
okay, sure. These are the requirement that yes, you need to support these special characters. There should be certain length of the password, example from 8 to 30 characters. Similarly, it goes for the email address. It has a support of 10 to 30 characters, and it supports special character as well as numbers and alphabets along with
yeah,
certain symbols like dots and
and
few.
also let's say also the customer has a requirement for like one number is only listed for like one one phone number cannot uh, reapply to the WhatsApp. Like let's say if I have a WhatsApp app, then only
Mm-hmm,
one number should work. Like we cannot copy the WhatsApp with the same number.
mm-hmm. So,
So if we have all those requirement, traceability metrics was um, written on the test cases, then the software or the testing team has a better understanding, and they must focus on the areas to ensure that all those requirements are delivered properly with
correct.
the high quality results.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a correct answer from my side?
Yes, somewhat correct. Just let us give you a clear picture first. So, what basically requirement traceability matrix does is there are n number of requirements for any project, correct? It can be
Yes.
1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, any number of requirements. Now, being a tester, we need to make sure that each and every requirement has been tested. Okay.
Okay.
Now, in order to ensure that, how can we ensure it? Let me ask you. How can we ensure that each requirement is tested? How, being a tester, would you ensure it?
Make sure like uh, all parts of the developed software has been tested properly.
No, it's not like that. if we try to test all the parts of the software that has been developed, suppose we go by that method. Now, the drawback in that is we would only be able to test what was developed. So assume a scenario in that
Mhm.
a developer forgot to implement few requirements. As there are too many requirements, there is a high possibility that developer might not be able to implement few requirement, or he or she might be under pressure to deliver it on the deadline, and he just skipped few requirements. Okay.
Okay.
Now we are testing the feature based upon what is developed, so we won't be having the idea that whether that requirement was implemented or not. Correct.
Yes.
And if it's a part of a major requirement, like if in file menu there was, suppose like in file menu there are 15 options. Now we need to test each and every option. That's okay for us. We can go ahead and as a tester, we can test it. But if the entire file menu was not developed, okay, the developer skipped the file menu. It's started the development from the edit menu only. So, and we do not know the requirement, or we did not go through that requirement. So would we be able to guess that no, the entire file menu development is pending? We won't be able to guess, correct?
Yes.
So in order to ensure that each and every requirement is fulfilled, we need to create something known as requirement traceability matrix that would help us to ensure that each and every requirement has at least one test case. At least. It can be more than one, but at least it should have one test case
Mhm.
that satisfies that requirement. The test case might be clubbed with other requirements also, but it should at least have one test case that should be linked to that requirement. Okay.
Okay.
Now, there is a assignment for you guys. You guys need to create your own requirement traceability matrix. Okay. You can take the help of the internet,
Okay.
create a requirement traceability matrix. That's your assignment. You need to submit it by next Monday. Okay.
Okay.
Keep that in mind. Now, next phase, that's test planning. Raj, are you back?
Yes, I was a phone and then yeah, I'm back now right away
Okay.
after 2 minutes. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah.
So you have heard about the assignment that you guys need to submit by Monday, next Monday, I mean. Did you
It
hear
is.
about, did you hear about the assignment, Raj?
Yes, the
Okay.
requirement traceability matrix. Yes, by
Yes.
Monday.
By Monday, you need to submit one.
Yeah, definitely.
We won't be sharing the format. You need to do your own research and
And then okay,
create a requirement traceability matrix. You are free to assume anything.
okay,
Okay. For
okay,
any kind of requirements, you don't need to create the RTM for an entire. It should only consist of 5 to 6 requirements. That would be more than enough. These requirements can be simple requirements also. Or if you want, you can go with the complicated requirements also. So all of you need to prepare that RTM, and we'll be discussing that RTM that you guys had prepared on Monday. Okay, so please don't miss that. It's very important. Now, test planning. So Raj, Do you have any idea about test planning? Raj?
Test planning and yes, for the second phase. Yeah, a little bit, but not sure, 100% sure.
No,
I
sure.
can try.
Yeah, give it a
So
try.
test, okay. So test planning is the software testing life cycle, one of the second phase, which involves like a schedule of testing, how to test, scope, uh, searching for resources, and goal of the uh, goal activities, and
Okay,
then yeah, that's all.
okay. Let me help you out here.
Okay.
If and when someone asks you a question, okay, and they try and if they try to ask you about any particular term and you need to give an answer and you don't exactly remember the definition. So what you can do is you just try to analyze the term that that person is asking. In this case, that is test planning. Okay, try to analyze this term, test planning. It consists of two words, test and planning. So what exactly would these two words mean? We are planning something related to test. Okay, and being a tester itself, what do we plan? We would be planning how exactly we can test a software, correct? So
Yes.
Yes.
what are the phases that might be involved in the planning? And who does the planning itself? So first of all, if planning is involved, there should be a managerial person that would do the planning, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So in most cases, we are safe to say that yes, the test manager or the test lead performs the test planning, because planning won't be given to any fresher or a person with 1 or 2 years of experience. Generally they are not allowed to plan, correct? Reason being because they lack the experience. So we can
Yes.
make certain calculated guesses just to make sure that whatever we say is not factually incorrect. It might not be 100% correct, but not factually incorrect. So this is how you can use trick, this trick in your interview process to make sure that you give most of your answers. But let me warn you, this trick has a downside as well. If you try to use this trick most of the time and you don't rely on your studying, then there is a high probability that you might end up in certain definitions or certain terminologies that might not be correct by this deduction skill. Okay. So by using the combination of your reading as well as this definitions, you can give any answers during the interview process. Okay. You need to use the combination of both. Am I clear? And am I making
Yes.
sense here? Raj?
Yes.
Yes, you're
Oh,
clear.
okay. So test planning basically means exactly we plan how would be testing the software. The earlier phase was requirement analysis. We were analyzing the requirements just to make sure that there is nothing missing in those requirements. We have all the components, or we have all the uh, answers for any kind of question that arises while reading the requirement itself. The next phase is test planning. Once we are done with the requirement analysis, we need to plan how exactly would we be testing, or what would be our testing approach here, to make sure that we do test each and every requirement. So what are the basic things that we need to do? First of all, after analyzing the requirement, to as we need to make sure how much testing effort is required after going through the requirement. Once we are done with the effort estimation, then we calculate the team size. What exactly would be the team size that we require for the entire testing process? It might be one person's job, two persons, or it might be 10% job. We need to estimate that. So don't worry, you won't be told to analyze that requirement from the very start. As you gain experience, then you would be told to analyze that and estimate the testing effort. Okay.
Yes.
And what would be the cost involved in the testing? And what we mean by that is, as soon as we try to calculate the team members, there is certain cost involved on adding each new team member. Correct?
Yes.
We need to take into account each and every costing, like their salaries, their devices that they would require to test that software, any special permission that they might need. So each tester, on adding each new tester to a project, increases the cost. Now the activities that takes place during test planning: identifying the testing objective and scope. We are done with the analysis. Now we need to determine the objective and the scope. Exactly how would we testing, and how much do we test at each and every iteration. Correct?
Yes.
Now we also need to develop a strategy based upon how the development work is done. Generally, what happens is, in today's mm, in today's development cycles, I'm saying that generally what happens is they do not develop the entire product at one go. What they do is they would develop certain functionality, and they would then give those functionalities to the tester to test it. And while the tester is testing those functionalities, the developer is gonna develop the next part. Okay.
Okay.
Now we need to make sure that before the developers hands us over the functionality or the partial functionality for testing, we do have that test cases of those partial functionalities with us. Then only we can test. Correct?
Yes.
So we need to develop a strategy based upon the development strategy to make sure that we are able to create the required test cases first. Okay.
Okay.
Now, there is also high chances that the customer might have said that, yes, my major customers would be using this application through this device only. Like, if I give you an example, if I'm trying to develop a social media platform, then my requirement would be that my customers should be able to access my social media platform through any device possible, like be it a mobile device, be it a tab, or be it a PC. or any laptops, correct?
Yes.
Or even a projector. They can access it on any screen size. So my social media platform should work on any screen size. That would be their basic requirement, correct?
Yes.
So we need to create a software that fits all the screen sizes. That would be the requirement of social media software. Now, if we have a requirement from, say, any particular bank, okay? In banks also, there are two type of software. First software is the customer facing software. Second software is the employee facing software. And what I mean by that is, in customer facing software, generally we have the applications that we use to access our bank accounts. For example, if you do have a Bank of America account, then you might have your Bank of America mobile application in your phones, correct?
Yes.
So you'll be using your, you'll be accessing your bank account from that mobile device. Or someone might also be using their laptops or iPad to access their bank account, correct? But if we try to talk about the bank employees, how they would be accessing their banking software, I mean, their interface would not be same as yours, correct?
Yes.
Why so? Because they have some additional functionalities that they need to perform. You only operate your own account, but a bank employee operates he handles the functionality of the bank. So their UI is different. So they might have a requirement that yes, our website must only work for website view, no mobile view due to security concerns. Correct?
Yes.
Are we clear on this example?
Yes.
Yes.
So that is how we need to identify our testing environment and resource needed for our mobile, for our interface that interacts with the customers. We need to test it on both mobile devices as well as desktop. For the software that the bank employee faces, we need to test only for the desktop version, not for mobile devices. Now, third point, the fourth point, identifying the test cases that will be executed and test data that will be used. What it does is, during the test case creation, we created that we need to test the login functionalities. Now, in that login functionalities, while testing the password field, we need to test each and every type of password that I'm allowed to use, correct? Like
Yes.
if I try to create a password without special characters, if I try to create a password with special characters, with uppercase and lowercase letters, without any letters. So we need all those combinations here, correct?
Yes.
So we can't just keep all those combinations in our head. We need to write down those combinations. Why so? Just to make sure that we are testing each and everything. Be- because generally what happens is, like suppose if you do come to work today and you are not in a good mood, so there might be high possibilities that you won't consider each and every data, that yes, I have to test each and every combination of password. You might just go and test two passwords and just leave it because you were not feeling like putting your 100% on that particular day. So that is not good, correct? There might be huge security lapse or requirement lapse here. So in order to make sure that we test each and everything, we document it first, and then we execute whatever we have documented. Okay. Are we
Okay.
cle- are we clear on it?
Yes.
Now, estimating the time and cost required for testing. We have already discussed this point. As soon as you estimate, you do have to estimate how much time does it take, what is the number of resource. Depending upon the resource, the cost would increase. Correct?
Yes.
Now, again, we need to identify the deliverables as well. Like, what we mean to say is that in how much time we would be completing the testing process. Like during the initial discussion phase, we would have already discussed with the developers how they would be giving us the software for testing. Now, based on how they would be giving us, now we also need to prepare a plan how we would be testing those partial softwares or partial functionalities, and what time we would be reverting back. Correct?
Yes.
So that is what we do in deliverables and milestone. Assigning roles and responsibilities to the testing team. So as there are n number of requirements, so we need to make sure that suppose that there are 10 requirements now, and there are 5 testers in the testing team. Okay. Now, if I start the meeting and tell our testing team that you need to create the test cases, and I have not distributed which requirement would each one of you pick. So, and I just tell you guys that go and create the test cases. So everyone's gonna start creating the test case for all the 10 requirements, correct?
Yes.
And there would be lots of extra work or unnecessary test cases because everyone has created the test cases for all the 10 requirements. That was not required. What would have been more efficient was to distribute those requirements, give 2 requirements to each tester, and tell them to prepare all the test cases. So we would have not wasted any time, and the coverage would have also increased. As everyone has to create the test cases for only 2 requirements, they would have given their 100%. Okay. The work
Okay.
would have been completed in a shorter duration. Correct?
Yes.
So we need to utilize our resources very carefully and and make use of it and extract the best possible outcome. Now the last point, reviewing and approving the test plan. Generally the test lead or the manager, they review the entire test plan, and if they are satisfied with the deliverables and the team required, the cost required, if they are okay with that, then they approve it. Okay.
Okay.
Now, moving to the next phase, that's test case development. The test case development phase gets started once the test planning phase is completed. In this phase, the testing team notes down the detailed test cases. The testing team also prepares the required test data for testing. And when the test cases are prepared, then they are reviewed by the quality assurance team. What is the quality assurance team? Anyone has any idea? Deepen.
Quality assurance is a process where the requirements are met
Mm-hmm.
to make sure all the requirements are met as per the contract and as per the software developed.
Correct. Quality assurance team is a separate team in most of the companies, not in all companies. If there is a large corporate IT company, there is a quality assurance team. As soon as the testing team develops the test cases, they just go through the entire test cases to make sure that every requirement is covered. Okay, they may or may not be the part of original team that is working on that requirement itself. Okay.
Okay. Mm.
And the activities that okay, I mean, first, are we clear on the test case development? Sorry, I was just moving forward. Are we clear on it or not?
Yes, we are.
Raj?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. You were clear.
Okay. And there are certain activities that happens during the test case development stage. And these activity and we'll be discussing these activities. First, identifying the test case that will be developed. It's very basic. We need as for every requirement we need to develop the test case. So we need to identify first what is the requirement and what would be the test case that we need for it. There might be one or more than one test cases for any requirement. Correct?
Yes.
Second point, writing test cases that are clear, concise, and easy to understand. We had already discussed the test case format that we have with us in previous class. Deepen.
Yes. Yes.
We need to write it in a clear and easy to understand language that anyone while reading that test case
Should
can
understand
yes, can
easily.
easily understand. Any third person can easily understand what we are testing here and what is the exact, I mean, what should be the outcome of that this test case. Okay.
Okay.
Now, third point, creating test data and test scenarios that will be used in test cases. We'll be discussing the test scenarios in later lectures. But I guess Deepen, you might have idea about what exactly is a test scenario, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, test data, I assume both of you might have idea what exactly is a test data.
Yes.
Raj, do you have an idea what is a test data?
Yes.
What is it? Explain quickly, please.
Okay. The test data is essential for the testing process, software testing process,
Give
and
me an example. Leave the definition. Give me an example of test data. Any example.
that means so that is a test data is for the test cases. So we
Mhm.
analyze the test data.
That I understand. You are absolutely correct. I want an example. Just give me an example of test data. Any example that you want. Give me an example. If you understand test data,
Maybe a lot of character of the login page, any software, any website. So we write down the number wise 1, 2, 3, 4 like this.
what we write.
We write the what we have to test it. So that kind of
I'm asking
language.
an example.
Mm,
Give me an
okay.
example. You're not giving me a clear-cut example. Dipen, help me, help Raj. Give an
It's a valid data, invalid data, and valid data. boundary data, like the valid data to meet all system requirements and specifications, invalid data that does not meet system requirements or specifications, and the boundary data acceptable boundaries or limits of the system.
You are talking about the test case design techniques here, Deepen, not the test data. Let me give you an example. Test data, you can assume if we want to test the password field, okay? Now we want test data for it. And the password field requirement supports minimum 8 characters, maximum 30 characters. Now we want test data. So the test data could be any password in between 8 to 30 characters. For example, let us assume a password that has the character length of 15 characters, that has everything in it. By that I mean special character, lowercase, uppercase letters, as well as numbers. Okay. And if you want further examples in that, it would be at the rate 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, E, till we complete that 15 character. That would be the example of a test data. Are we clear?
Yes, now. Okay.
You both were giving me the definition of the test data
Yeah,
and
the example I was confused, example. I know
okay.
the login page we can do, but I didn't understand the like a character. I forgot the character. I
So,
understand, but I cannot explain. That's the only main problem. Sorry
that's
about that.
what, no, no problem. That's what you need to learn. You need
No.
to
Yeah.
analyze what exactly is the other person asking. And once you are done with your analysis, then only answer that.
Okay.
I was asking for an example, not exactly the designing techniques or how
Okay.
would you come up with that example. I was asking just an example. You could
Mm.
have easily said that yes, for a password field, the test data would be if the character limit is in between 8 to 30, we can take a example of 10 numbers in random order, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That would be the test data to test the password field. Test test data can be of any type. It can be correct test data, incorrect test data. Okay.
Okay.
Now the next point, identifying the expected result for each test cases. So in the test case development process also, as we had discussed earlier, you need to give the expected result, correct?
Yes.
And in that expected result of yours, you'll make sure that everything is working. What exactly is the correct output for the given sets of input? Like if we enter the correct username and password, we should be navigated to the home page. If we enter incorrect username and password combination, then we should be given a prompt saying incorrect username or password. Correct?
Yes.
Now, once we have developed the test cases, we need to review it before testing to make sure that each and every test case is as per our requirement and they have been developed correctly. They have the correct test data. We need to validate it. Okay.
Okay.
We do that in the test case development phase only. We just cross check it. Now, the last part, updating the requirement traceability matrix to map the requirement to the test cases. As I had already told you earlier, what we do in requirement traceability matrix, we map the requirement to the test cases itself. Correct?
Yes.
So that is what we do in the test case development also. Update the requirement traceability matrix just to make sure that each requirement has been linked to their corresponding test cases. Are we clear on all these points or any doubts till now?
No doubts from my
No
side.
doubts, clear.
Okay. Now we have test environment setup. So as we had already as I had already given you the example about the banking software, correct? That has two kinds of software. First the customer facing one, second the employee facing one. So for customer facing one, it should be compatible with all screen sizes. But for the employee software, it should be compatible only with the desktop or laptops. Correct?
Laptops, desktop, yes.
So based upon that kind of requirements, we need to set up the testing environment just to make sure that the requirements of the customers are getting fulfilled. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
There might be any kind of requirement, like suppose there might be a case that we do have a customer that wants us to develop an application, but only for iPhones or iOS. Okay. So we don't need a test environment for Android phones because our requirement was only to develop a software only for iPhones. Correct?
Yes.
So based upon the requirement, we can set up the test environment. As we have already discussed it, we won't be going into much detail. You can go through the definitions on your own. Now we'll be moving towards the next point. That's test case execution. Deepen your thoughts on test case execution. Make it quick, please. Do you have idea, first of all, test case execution?
No.
Raj, Raj, are you still busy?
No.
Okay.
For my understanding, like when the test cases are written, the tester will use those test cases
Mm-hmm.
requirements and start testing as per the instruction on the test cases.
Mm-hmm.
Those test cases were executed by the tester. The
Mm-hmm.
previously written test cases were executed by the tester to perform the testing.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the test execution.
Correct. So let me explain in a bit detail here. Test case execution basically means as soon as our test environment setup is complete, now we are ready for test case execution. What we mean by that is now we are ready to execute, or we are now ready to verify each test cases that we had written to test the requirement. Correct?
Yes.
What we basically do is all the test cases that we had written earlier, we start executing them one by one. So we enter all the inputs, or we try to follow all the steps that are mentioned in the test cases. If the actual result is what the expected result is, then the test case is marked as pass. If the actual result is not equal to the expected result, then we mark the test case as fail. Okay.
Okay.
And there is also another condition that might come into play, that that test case has not been implemented yet, or that functionality has not been implemented yet. So we need to wait for next iteration when that functionality would be implemented. So we can mark that test case as not developed. Okay. But we need to mark it to make sure that we remember that we have not verified this test case on our software. Okay.
Okay.
Raj, are we clear about test case execution?
Yes.
Now, there are few activities involved in test case execution. We'll be going through it quickly. First, test case execution itself. What we basically do is there is a complete script or list of test cases that we need to execute just to make sure that the functionality is working and in order to identify any kind of defects or issues that we might encounter while executing. Now, the second point, once we are done with the test case execution, there might be generally there are two scenarios, either the test cases pass or the test cases fail, correct?
Yes.
Depending upon the later scenario, that if the test case fails, we need to create an issue for it, correct?
Yes.
Because that is how we track the defects here, by creating an issue or logging a defect. Both the
Yes.
terms are same. So we create an issue in whatever format our company has provided us. There are many softwares that we might be using. If I give you an example, it could be Jira, Linear. These are the software that we use for defect tracking. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, test data preparation. Sometimes there might be cases that the test case might have failed. Okay. Or during the test case execution, we got our Eureka movement that, oh, these test datas were missing from my test cases. So we need to add those test datas as well. Okay.
Yes.
If during our execution time, we come to the realization, then we might add that at that point also. Now, again, during that test case execution phase, there might be certain requirements that while executing the test case, we came to know that yes, there are certain requirements that we need that are not fulfilled regarding the test environment setup. Like we had already prepared our test cases 1 month ago, but due to some reason, the development took more than 2 or 3 months. Now, as soon as the testing phase kicks in, we start executing the test cases. Now we come to know that we need a mobile device as well to test this few test cases. But we were only given the desktop version, or we were only given the desktop to test. Now we need to set up that mobile device environment as well to test it. So that might also be the part of test case execution. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Are we clear on test environment setup and why it is needed at test case execution level? Are we clear on it?
Yes.
Yes.
Then comes the test case execution itself. We run the test cases and script, and the results are collected and analyzed as soon as we run the test cases and we get the result. We start our analysis about that result, because as we had discussed earlier, there is a certain threshold that we should not breach, or there is a clause in generally there is a clause in the contract that says that our software should not contain more than n number of bugs. It might be in terms of numbers, it might be in terms of percentage, correct?
Yes.
So we need to analyze that result in order to make sure what exactly is the current state of our software. Now, once we are done with the analysis, then there is defect retesting. We have already raised the issues. As soon as we raise the issue, the issues are assigned back to the development team, either to a manager or individual developers, and they'll be fixing that issues. And as soon as those issues are fixed, it is reassigned to the testing team or that or what whoever tester created those issues. They might directly assign to that tester also or the testing team. And we need to verify those issues to make sure that the issue is working correctly. The developers cannot close that issue. Only the tester would be allowed to close that issue. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Any doubts why only testers are allowed to close the issue on? Why are only testers allowed to close issue? Raj,
Which one?
why are only testers allowed to close issues? Okay, let me explain.
Yeah, yeah.
The reason why only testers are allowed to close the issue is because the developers, while fixing that issue, as they are the one that fixes those issues, they might not be able to test it without any kind of bias. Okay, that I had already fixed that issue, so this must be executing properly only. This functionality is working correctly. So they do have a bias on their end. Okay. It's the psychology that if I have done something, yes, it is working correctly if I try to test it. But if I give that to some third person, they might be testing it from a whole new perspective. And they do not have that bias in them that yes, it should be working correctly. So they'll be giving us the actual result, whether it is working correctly or not. Okay. Due to that, developers are not allowed to close any issues.
Okay.
And once we are done with the defects retesting, then we create a test result report and we document everything. That these are the active numbers of issues that we have for the project right now. These were the total number of issues that were raised by the testing team. These were the issues that these are the number of issues that were fixed by the developers. Okay, there is a format for it. One more task for you guys. You need to prepare a sample test report also. Okay.
Okay.
That for by Monday or just tomorrow?
No, by Monday. Take your time.
So test reporting.
Yes, test reporting as well as requirement traceability matrix.
Right.
Whatever assignment I'm giving you, please don't try and copy and paste it from the internet.
No.
Google it. There is no limitation on
Yeah.
Google it, go through the details, go through 3 or 4 samples, at least 3 or 4 type of samples of test reporting and traceability matrix.
Yeah. And make
Try to
one.
understand it, and whichever you think is the best one,
Yeah.
just copy that.
I
Okay.
do the same.
If you try to follow this process, you would be able to increase your understanding. Okay.
Okay.
Now the last part, that's the test closures. It's the final stage of the software testing life cycle. Okay, and the main objective of this phase is to close the testing process and all the testing related activities. And once the
Can I share something
yeah, sure.
from my screen like once the class is done?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Just give me few more minutes. I'll be done. So in the test closure process itself, what happens is we are done with the entire testing life cycle till the test case execution, where we have already created the reports and everything. Now, as soon as the test closure phase kicks in, what we do is we just verify everything is done from our end or not. I mean, whether we have created that report, testing report, and documented everything or not, whether that threshold, that the entire project should not have more than certain percentage of open issues, whether those thresholds are met or not. Once we are confident that yes, we have fulfilled all the requirements of our client, then we can go for the test closure phase. And as soon as the test closure phase is complete, we are ready to deploy our software in the production itself. Okay.
Okay.
And these are few things that we do during our test closure process. First, a test summary report, how exactly we tested, what exactly are the challenges that we were facing. We create a summary for that and we send it to the testing lead or the manager. Defects tracking, whatever open issues we do have in our project, we prepare a list of those issues and share it with the managers and the product and the client. Next is test environment cleanup. Just to make sure that we are done with the testing, we clean up the test environment. What we mean by that is the mobile devices that was allotted to us. We might have installed our software in it, banking software, correct? To test it.
Yes.
So we need to remove that just to make sure that there is no security concerns. The next part, text test closure report. We need to have a detailed report about the objective, scope, and schedule and resources used. What kind of resources did we use for the testing process? And how was the original scope? How was the original schedule? And how exactly were we able to follow that schedule strictly or not? And what was the original resource estimation? What was the resource that we actually used? The reason for this closure report is for the management to understand whether from next time itself we would be increasing or decreasing the resources. Okay.
Okay.
Now the next part is knowledge transfer. Now, as soon as the closure is done, we need to transfer whatever we have tested to the maintenance team. Correct? There might be a scenario in which the current testing team might not be required in the maintenance phase, because generally in the maintenance phase there is a lot there is very little work, you can say, in comparison to the development phase. So in the development phase, the entire development as well as testing team might be very big, but during that maintenance phase the team would be very small. So we need to do a knowledge transfer. We need to make sure that each and every tester or the developer that was in that project or that was associated with that project shares his or her knowledge with the person that is staying in the project. Okay.
Okay.
And last but not the least, feedbacks and improvement. If you do think that there might be certain changes that we can incorporate in our process or in our development or testing life cycle, you can share with your managers. So they can keep that in mind whenever they do, I mean, start a new project. Okay.
Okay.
So these are the points of test closure. Any doubts on it?
No,
Okay. Any doubts
not
on
from my
whatever
side.
topics we covered today?
Not
No,
from my side.
not for me too.
Okay, sounds good. Then, Deepen, you were sharing something, I guess. Now you can go ahead.
Yeah, I had a it was. I just want to confirm these are the test cases. Like we we are we are doing assignment for the test cases. That's what you had given to us for next week, right?
Yes,
For test reporting.
Just reporting.
yes.
Okay. I want to share something here from my screen. Just give me a second. I just want to make sure that is this the way of is the entire screen.